Dear Mr. Dalton, dear Mrs. Rauscher, dear Mrs. Barkey, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased you gave me the opportunity to once more comment on the current development of the European integration policy. That is a wide field and there is a lot to say, but since there is not much time, I can only address a few aspects and the discussion may give the opportunity to comment on the other aspects. In particular, I would like to make some remarks on the specific constitutional issue and on the particular situation of Ireland, since this will obviously be our concern during the next days, that the Irish may save us from the bureaucratic dictatorship that is quite essentially promoted by the Lisbon Treaty. But first allow me to make some more remarks on the judgment of the German Constitutional Court, since that is my subject, and you know that it was me who filed the essential constitutional complaint for the Member of Parliament, Mr. Gauweiler, that I composed and wrote the text, but I also filed it under my own name. There were also other constitutional complaints, but they were of minor significance. The German Constitutional Court differed from the Vienna Constitutional Court in one aspect. And it would be great if Austria could follow this. That means that we, all of us, and you in particular, will have a lot of work to do so that the legal protection of the citizen will at least achieve the German level, which, however, is not very laudable either. Since here in Austria we took legal action as well, under the leadership of Mrs. Rauscher, this is especially important to mention. The fundamental rights which we claimed here in Austria did not differ at all from those that I claimed in Germany. But the Austrian Constitutional Court did not consider any legal protection at all. It did not even take the presentation serious. The German Federal Constitutional Court, however, extended the legal protection, which was essentially established by the Maastricht lawsuit, which I also carried on myself. The court did so following my presentation, for it supports each citizen's claim to having the core of the constitutional identity defended. That means the irrevocable principles of the Constitution. In Austria, people would say the construction principles, or to the essential principles of the Constitution. That is human dignity. We have to clarify that. I think that the dignity of the Austrians is not different from the dignity of the Germans, at least as far as dignity is granted to us at all. From the dignity of man, the German Federal Constitutional Court deduces the principles of freedom and equality. This is the same in Austria. You can read that in every commentary. And from these principles, the rights to vote are deduced. For free and equal citizens have to be able to elect their own parliament. But the elections have to be embedded into the essential regulations of the constitutional law. That means the constructing principles, which are the principle of the democratic state, the rule of law principle, the social state principle, and the federal state principle in Germany and Austria. So from the electoral principle, a right to be equal with respect to fundamental rights is deduced, which is also valid for Austria, where the elections are clearly regulated in Article 26 of the Federal Constitution. The electoral principle enables us to defend vis-à-vis the Constitutional Court not only the democratic principle, but also the rule of law principle and the social state principle. This is a very big step. But up to now, we had no way to file a lawsuit on the ground of violation of the social principle, as I call it in Germany. Now we have got it. So it is not only the major claim, the claim to democracy, which I have been working for since the time of my PhD. I don't want to tell you how long ago that was, but we also have a claim to the rule of law state, and we have a claim to the social state. This is very good and exemplary, but the Vienna Constitutional Court did not think at all. It did not at all adopt this identical argumentation, but I think the people of Austria are no different from the people of Germany. They share the same dignity, they can claim the same freedom, equality, and they have the same electoral right, and that is something they must have in order to preserve the right of the peoples to their self-determination. This is nothing but the consequence of the fact that freedom is the foundation of our political systems. Freedom logically leads us to the right to self-determination of the peoples. But allow me to say here, my dear colleague, Mrs. Sparky, this is what finally remains, and it is valid for Germany as well as for Austria. It is accepted by the federal government in Austria, and I have conquered it in the Maastricht lawsuit. Before Maastricht, it was rejected by everybody. This right to opt out of the European Union. The Germans can observe it now. The Austrians can observe it. The Irish can observe it. They can, of course, stop the further development by voting no. I am trusting, but I am sorry not to be just as trusting as is Mrs. Sparky, in the power of the peoples. This would be right and hopeful if peoples would remain what they were.
Aber wir leiden ja alle erheblich darunter, dass die Völker mit aller
But we all suffer considerably from the fact that the peoples are being transferred with might and main into populations and into a kind of population that is constituted by people with different languages, different cultures, different religions, and they will not be able to oppose these mighty governments of megastates.
Diesen machtvollen Regierungen der Großstaaten sich entgegenzustellen.
In order to do that, we require genuine peoples. Peoples of homogeneity, first of all of cultural homogeneity, language homogeneity, historic homogeneity, and we need a leading group, an elite. And the Union does everything to abolish these leading groups. It is for this purpose that we have the Bologna process, and all those who work at a university are affected by it. The university studies, the degrees that are completed today, have nothing to do with the degrees I once completed, even less with the studies that in earlier decades perhaps led to the great significance of the Vienna sciences, which were leading in many fields, but also to that of the German sciences. Yes, Vienna stands for Austria. Some remarks about the contents. The Federal Constitutional Court did not amend, in spite of the widely acknowledged fundamental rights, the incompatibility of the integration with democracy. It talked big, but in reality these words do merely befog the issue. Because the boundaries that the court set for the integration process are very wide and relativized many times.